Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Felix, and this is my colleague and fiance, Hannah Milan. We'll just wait a few minutes while folks get into the room, and we'll get started here shortly. Yeah, that number is still climbing a little bit, but we can get started with introductions. And as folks join us, they'll be here for most of it. As I said, my name is Chris Felix. I'm a Senior Assistant Director of Admissions here in Canton, New York at St. Lawrence University. I graduated from St. Lawrence in 2008, and this will be my 7th year working with students and families from the Rochester area. And so very excited to be here tonight. And I'm joined by my colleague and fiance, Hannah Milan. Hannah, you can tell them what you do in our office?
Yep, so again, my name is Hannah Milan. I am unfortunately not a St. Lawrence grad, but I am entering my 4th year here as Assistant Director of Admissions. I work with students from Maine and New Hampshire predominantly, and then some states in the Midwest as well.
But tonight is not about St. Lawrence. Tonight is about the college application, the essay, and the resume specifically. The Common App is a great tool, and that's many of you are looking at that right now or will be shortly. And so tonight you've got 2 admissions counselors here to talk to you about the Common Application essay prompts, best practices for your college essay. What are the do's and don'ts for college admissions professionals? There are some. And how to really wow with your resume and your activities list. Those matter a great deal to a lot of institutions, and it's important that you use that as an opportunity to really put your best foot forward in that college application.
And so a good place to start is the essay. And this is something that I think a lot of you start hearing about very early on. I remember my own college experience when my freshman year, it was like, oh, your college essay. And so we want to talk through some of the things that right now we are on the do list, and then Chris will get to some that are on our don't list. But really, if you haven't already, start thinking about potential topics now. We'll talk about some of the options that you have. We'll look at an example, but start thinking about those and don't just get stuck on the first one you think of and try and make that work. Keep revising that topic until you find what you feel best about. It's not going to come out right the first time, and it might take a lot of tries, but keep revising, stick with it, seek out help, seek out some proofreading as we'll talk about, but keep revising that and then find what feels right to you. Be unique. And we're not saying this to pressure you into finding something that nobody else has written about, but have it be special to you. And that can take on a lot of different forms, but just find that's something that is unique to you and that you're passionate about and you feel good about. And think about what is significant to you as you go through your high school years and you kind of reflect on the last few years or even middle school. What are the things that are significant to you? Have there been challenges? Have there been great triumphs? Think about those moments that have stood out to you and how they can relate to kind of where you're going in your future endeavors, and that means college. And the next piece is substance over style. It does not have to be a 5-paragraph essay. We're not looking for anything specific. Like we said, be unique, be creative. So that substance, what's in the essay, is a lot more important than how long it is, how it's framed. And it's more just about what you have in there. And lastly, proofread it. Have someone else proofread it. Have someone else proofread it again and again. It's really easy. I do this all the time in emails. I send an email and I think I had it perfect, and I look at it again and there's a spelling mistake or just something that's very easy to miss on your own. Having another set of eyes on that piece will bring out those kind of easy things that when you've been staring at the same essay for an hour, you're going to miss. So just make sure you have someone proofread it, and even a couple different people.
We're going to look at some examples, and Hannah and I will get a little bit more specific. But those are just good general rules, right? Your English teachers have been harping on you for years to do this, but it really is one of those things that you want to focus on. But the don'ts, right? And I promise I'm not a negative guy. For those of you interested in St. Lawrence, I'm not a negative guy, but I do want to talk to you about the don'ts. Don't rely on spell check. Spell check is not perfect. It does not know grammar. Really, if you have doubt, right? I couldn't Google a word when I applied to college, right? It wasn't an option for me. I was pulling out a dictionary. You can really quickly look that up. So take that extra step. Please don't specifically reference one school in your essay, because the chances are you're applying to more than one school. And I don't want to say that it hurts my feelings when someone writes their essay about how much they love Colgate, which is her alma mater. But it's not a great look, right? If I'm at St. Lawrence or Hobart or SUNY Geneseo and I'm reading an essay or hearing about how much you love Hamilton or NYU, it's a little bit different. So just don't do it. Misuse the synonym option with Word. So when you have a word and you're like, oh, geez, I think I might be able to find a better one. And you go right click and down to that synonym list. Many of those are not actual synonyms for the word you're looking for. And college admissions professionals are really keen to pick up on those things. And so it can make you look a little bit silly. So again, take that extra step, find one more resource. If you're in doubt, check it out. Please don't make assumptions, and we'll talk about this in the activities section as well. But if you are part of the ABCDE club at your high school, I don't know what ABCDE stands for, and neither does Hannah. So make sure that you're giving us all the information we need to understand what you're talking about. And that's where having some other folks read it really helps. The big game. I was a varsity athlete at St. Lawrence, which means I was a Division III athlete. Hannah was a hockey player at Colgate. We both love to hear stories about the big game, and we can relate to stories about an injury. The challenge with those in a college essay is that's what every other teenager in the country is writing about. So it's almost impossible to write an essay about the big game or a breakup or something else that is just common across so many differences in this country and do it that way. It just doesn't work. So despite, you can still write that essay. It's just probably not your best Common App essay. And don't waste space with fluff. It's always heartbreaking to me when I get to the end of an essay and I go to the next page expecting it to be the next page in the Common Application, and the student has written one more paragraph, right? It's when the artist puts that one last paintbrush on, a paint stroke on, and it's just too much. Really, that's in your revision process. Write more and edit it down. And typically when we see fluff in there, it's a failure to edit. And again, that's something that colleges are looking for in the essay. So make sure that you've taken that time and don't have that extra stuff in there.
So now we'll talk about some of the essay prompts, and we're not going to read these because it is very small, but these are the actual essay prompts that you'll find on the Common App. The number one thing that we want you to know is it really does not matter to us which one you choose. They are all perfectly acceptable and fine. Your interpretation of those, there's no right or wrong answer when it comes to choosing the actual essay prompt. And so we'll take a moment, a few minutes here to talk about an example of a good essay that we've seen and why. So we'll take a peek at that now.
So first things first, all confidentiality has been maintained here. This is a student essay. This is an actual essay from an actual applicant at St. Lawrence. This is from the Common Application. So the chances are they applied to 2 to 20 more schools. But what we really want to point out here is, as Hannah said, just some of the things that we discussed. As you look at that, and I invite you to read some of those paragraphs, and you'll see that this is not Ernest Hemingway's writing. This is not F. Scott Fitzgerald's writing. If you wrote like those gentlemen, you wouldn't need to go to college. We're all in the business of student development in one way or another. And so we're not looking for you to do anything groundbreaking here. We are looking for correct spelling, correct grammar. You'll notice this is not in that 5-paragraph essay format, right? The dreaded 5-paragraph essay that we've all mastered because we go to high school in New York State. That is an incredible skill. And it doesn't take much more to take those skills and make it into an essay that looks like this, that reads like this, that flows like this. Hannah, do you want to jump in just about kind of the next parts that we're looking here?
Yeah, so if you've been able to read through this, you can tell it's a pretty minor incident in the grand scheme of things. But he or she really pulls you in from the beginning, and really kind of pulls that reader in, tells the story, gives you a visual, and in the end pulls it back to how she has grown, demonstrates reflection in a very humorous way. This was not something that, it was not the death of a family member or a breakup. Again, like, these are all things that have profound impacts on your lives and you can write about them. But she achieved the growth and the reflection in a way that was a very small incident in the grand scheme of things, and found the humor in crashing her go-kart, I think it was.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, having done many essay workshops with students from all over the country, we've both encountered a lot of students who say, I haven't had a big tragedy. Well, you don't, who are you? That's who we want to know.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need to have a tragedy or some huge move or shift in your life to be an interesting person. If that is part of your identity and it's fitting with the prompts and your essay comes together and that's it, that's okay. That's fine. But for those students who are finding anxiety in either sharing something so personal, something so life-changing in a college essay, that's totally understandable. Know that you don't have to do that. One of my favorite essays ever was about a young lady who didn't like chocolate. And I thought, that sounds like a first world problem, and it is, right? She doesn't like chocolate. But when you think about growing up in America, there's chocolate at birthday parties and you're expecting, Halloween, you get tons of chocolate. Mm-hmm. She was excited about the apples and pennies. So it was just one of those great ways that she could get her character across. Hey, I'm a little quirky. I'm a little different. I go against the grain. You're going to want my perspective in your classrooms, right? And so it's tying it. What are you bringing to that community?
And we'll take another look at the prompts. And I think there's one important thing to add is that they added a new prompt this year that's about gratitude and sharing these moments of uplifting. And that's a direct reflection of what's happened in the last year and a half. Not everybody was impacted in the same way. And they want to see those, what are the positive moments? If you didn't have a life-changing event, or if you didn't have something that sticks out that was directly because of COVID, what are the things you learned about yourself? What are the things that you're grateful about that you've seen in the last year and a half? So there's a lot of different ways that you can take your essay. There's no right or wrong answer. We're just looking for that substance and something that's important to you.
And Hannah showed my humanity there, because that is the slide I did not update. The first one with the prompts, I have updated one.
This one is updated.
Well, I think it's worth taking the time to read that, because I think the Common App has their heart and minds in the right place for this question. Number 4, reflect on something that someone has done for you that has made you happy or thankful in a surprising way. How has this gratitude affected or motivated you? Now, that's new. That's new for admissions counselors. It's new for you guys. And I encourage you to take a look at that. Don't be afraid of it. It's a challenging question. It's a challenging prompt. But it's a healthy exercise, and it's one that colleges will be interested to see how students respond to. So if that has your attention or has piqued your interest, that's cool, and you can start thinking about that. So thank you, Hannah.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Jumping back.
Yes. Okay, so now we're going to jump into the activity section. What is important in the activity section, and what do we want to know? And really, we want to know everything that we can't see on your transcript. And we know that's not oftentimes possible. There's opportunities to interview and things like that. But we really want to know what's important to you. What are the clubs? What are the activities, hobbies, sports, jobs, home responsibilities? Again, there's no right or wrong answer to this. We just want to know what is important to you outside of the classroom. What is a part of your everyday or every week life or every month life? Think about the entirety of your high school experience in and out of school. So again, not just the classroom, not just what's happening at home, everything. Think about the entire scope. try, we've had some students that go back to middle school, but that's really kind of too far back. We're really just focusing on high school. Be mindful of the time that you've invested in various activities. So if you say an example of something that we see a lot that isn't great is community service, and it's, one day in 2020 or what have you. We're looking for those things that you're doing on a consistent basis, more than just once a year or more than just once ever. So be really mindful of the time that you're investing. Represent the entire spectrum of your interests. As I said before, work, hobbies, athletics, academics, community service, leadership opportunities, travel. If you're really invested in an organization, there's really no limits. So include the entire spectrum and offer meaningful explanations and descriptions. So we don't want you to just put the description or the label for it and then a quick sentence. Think about that. What's the best way to say that explains what you're doing, how you're doing it, and is concise. So we kind of have to find that magic middle ground of not saying too much, but not saying too little. So just kind of flesh those out as well. Have people proofread those, have your parents, guidance counselor. This is no different from the essay. Have other folks take a look at it.
We're going to look at one next, just like we did with the essay. So you can start to get a sense. We're going to talk about it. It's a really good one. So if it doesn't look exactly like that, it's okay. But just the don'ts as we move on, getting ready to look at one. Again, don't assume we know the abbreviations, acronyms for your high school. Within a lot of other organizations too in the activities section, start thinking outside of high school. Are you involved with scouting? Hannah mentioned employment. It always breaks my heart when a student at the end of an interview, I say, is there anything that didn't come up? Or, how do you spend your time? And they say, oh, I work 23 hours a week at Dunkin' Donuts. You have a harder job than I do. That takes a lot of higher order thinking skills that colleges are very interested in. So any job that you've had, especially fast food jobs, right? Those are really stressful environments. But back to the don'ts. Don't underestimate those involvements and achievements, like a job at a Dunkin' Donuts, at a McDonald's. We care for the exact reasons that we've said. And please don't hesitate to brag. Adults brag all the time. We brag in job interviews, we brag in the coffee room. We're very excited about the things we've done. And now it's your turn. You've worked hard for the last 4 years, and you're headed on to that next step, which is college, wherever it may be. Don't hesitate to look back and say, you know what? I'm the captain of the basketball team. I have great leadership skills. I can motivate a group of people. Or I'm the yearbook editor. I'm so detail oriented, you won't believe it. Those are the things that you can now share and demonstrate. All that work was not for nothing. It was so that you could gain these skills. And so please don't hesitate to say, you know what? I have room to grow as a leader, but for a 17 or 18-year-old, pretty darn good.
Yeah. And I think one good thing to keep in mind is a lot of students that I talk with, they're very caught up in what do you want to hear? What's important to you to get out of us? Or what's the ideal candidate? And it's really hard because we want you to focus on what's important to you. In this process, we do not care personally what's important to us. We have values at St. Lawrence, we have values as human beings, but we really want to know what is important to you. So just don't worry about what is important to us when it comes to activities. We really want to know what are you doing and what is important. So now we'll take a look at an example, and as Chris said, a very good one.
Yes, and I understand this is small. So I show this to you as an example here. These are significant involvements. 9 through 12 on that left-hand side of each one, you can see this student has been committed to these. The only one that's very small is environmental, and it was during a break for 14 hours a week or 7 weeks a year. Yeah, so that, again, as Hannah mentioned, it doesn't have to be something you do over and over every year, but make sure that it's substantial. Ringing the Salvation Army bell once around the holidays in your sophomore year is a good thing, but it's not exactly what colleges are looking for in the activities section. So some great ones here. I always point out at the bottom right, family responsibilities. And this student used this as an opportunity to be a little humorous and say, I'm a chef and chauffeur. I take care of my younger siblings, right? So I'm doing these things. I'm taking them to practice. I'm picking up groceries. I'm cooking dinner. I'm cleaning up the dishes. And by the way, did you see my transcript? Because I'm still getting my homework and studying done. Those are the things that colleges get excited about. And for you, maybe you don't have any siblings. Maybe you order pizza every night. You have something in your life that is keeping you busy, and we want to hear about it. And so as you work through, I do want to underscore that you might not fill it, right? There are 10 spots here. Chris Felix, would not have filled the activities section.
Me neither.
Well, it would have just been a lot of hockey. Yeah, just be hockey over and over again. It's okay. Focus on the meaningful ones. 3 to 5, I would say, is a good minimum. But if you have 3 or 4 significant involvements that show what you've done throughout your high school career, maybe you've dabbled too. There's no harm in dabbling, right? If you tried the art club in 7th or 9th grade and you didn't like it, that's okay. That happens at St. Lawrence all the time. Our students say, yeah, I want to learn how to fly fish. And then they realize they have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go fly fishing. And so some of them might back out from that. And that's okay, right? You try it. And if it clicks, it clicks. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But find those things that have been meaningful, perhaps a job and work with your church, in your community. It's not exclusively high school.
Yeah, and as you can see, this student does a really nice job of, again, clear and concise explanations of what she was doing. There's limited room, so you can't write, a full paragraph or an essay for each one, but don't just write, 3 words and move on. Don't underestimate this piece. This needs to be complete and well thought out, again, proofread. So all the pieces really of your Common App should be proofread, or whatever application you're using should be proofread.
Yeah, and an example of a 3-word descriptor, again, 2 athletes here, but when we go to the activities section and it says football, I was a starter, we're disappointed. We're disappointed, and that's a tough sell up the chain, right? I'm your advocate at St. Lawrence and missions counselors at other schools. Help us help you, because we have to take your application to the rest of the committee, and sometimes they can be a little tough. So just something to keep in mind. This is your chance to brag and educate us about the things that you've had a chance to do. So we're going to move on to the Common Application now, and we're going to look at it a little bit more broadly. And this is not going to be a deep dive into how to fill out the family section, but we want you to be aware of some of the information that you will be asked to provide. That has changed this year. It has become less, I'll use the word intrusive, where we don't need to know where your parents went to college or what their job title is. The Common App used to ask that, and that's information that, unless it says St. Lawrence or Colgate, we obviously a wonderful school. Unless it says that, there's not much there to catch our eyes. We're at St. Lawrence, we don't really care where you went to, where your parents went to school or what they do.
All right, so we'll just go through these pretty quickly. And these are the sections that you'll find on the Common App. The profile is really just about yourself and your family and where you live and all of those things. Family, pretty self-explanatory if you have any siblings or what your parental situation looks like or anything like that. Education, where you've gone to high school, if you've had multiple high schools. I went to, I think, 3 high schools, different high schools because of hockey, and you have to kind of, if you're in that boat, plan ahead and reach out to those schools that have your transcripts that you've gone to in the past, just in case, so that you're on top of those pieces that you're going to have to get. Testing, if you would like to, we are test optional. Not every school is. We have been since 2005, but that is where you would indicate your testing preferences and your scores. Activities, we just went over that section. Writing is the essay. We also just went over that. And then your courses and your grades. The only thing you cannot switch, cannot change in the Common App. The rest of it, though, you have the freedom on a lot of those sections to be creative and show some different sides of yourself that might not come through in those courses and grades.
I know Mr. Howe at Fairport is close to perfecting a time machine, but until he does, Hannah's right. You can't go back and change your grades in your 9th grade year or your 10th grade year. You know, we interview students at St. Lawrence who will, you know, their transcript is 95, 95, 81, 95. We want, what happened with the 81? Oh, my parents got divorced. We moved. My dog died, and then there was wasn't there a global pandemic recently? There is it still? Yeah. So these are challenges, right? And so just something to keep in mind. So best practices with your Common App. We say it over and over and over again, and it's because year after year after year, students, it comes to a crunch time. Right? You do not want to start working on your college applications when your academic senior year is under full swing. We talk to students who are, you know, really stressing out because they have 4 AP classes in a dual enrollment course, and they're trying to figure out how to finalize something on their application. And then all of a sudden their second teacher recommendation hasn't come in, and we're pretty close to the deadline. Don't put yourself in that position. Take your time, make the most of every section, review it with your family, review it with your guidance counselor if they have the ability and the availability to do that. It's okay to ask for help. Work with each other. That's what our students do here at St. Lawrence. They constantly are working with each other. Start doing that because you guys know how to talk about what you do, how you live. And so help each other figure out how to make those compelling stories for us.
All right, and so this is kind of, as we're wrapping up, a few tips to, as you start to prepare, and many of you have probably started. If you haven't, that's okay. Everyone is at a different point in their college process, but there are a couple things we want to make sure you do. Check the admissions requirements for every school on your list, and that includes test policies, deadlines, additional scholarship opportunities. Look at all of these schools that end up on your list and keep track of the things that are important to you. Make sure you understand what they're asking for. So again, take your time, understand what is being asked of you. If there's an additional component for a scholarship, or if there's something else that you have to submit, understand what they're asking. And if you need help, ask for it. And then lastly, and this is something that I tell all my students, have a system to keep track of the applications. Have a list of the schools at the top, and then their application deadline, their what they require for if you're applying for need-based financial aid. Do they require the FAFSA or the CSS profile? Do they have additional scholarships that I might qualify or might be a good fit for? And then their test policies. So just have a good sense of those kind of key pieces at every school, because unfortunately, they're not all the same. We wish they were.
Yeah. So just a few things to talk over. One thing that college admissions counselors like to do is use lingo that you might not be familiar with, because chances are you've never applied to college. And so let's just take a minute and try to get on the same page. And the Common App is the most ubiquitous application that's out there. So many schools are Common App exclusive. I know SUNY, I believe SUNY has their own app, but they may accept the Common App as well. But it's something that's a great option, right? Because you can apply to up to 20 schools, a lot of which have fee waivers, right? There are ways to get application fee waivers. At St. Lawrence, we just eliminated our application fee. So there's no cost to click St. Lawrence on there and throw your hat in the ring. So take a look and find out what the application the colleges on your list is using. The coalition application is used by a very small number of schools. Some art schools, it gives you the ability to attach like a profile with it. It's a much more substantial look at the whole high school career. Not many schools are using the coalition app, but then there are some school specific apps like St. Lawrence has a St. Lawrence application. You can use the Common App, or you can use the St. Lawrence app. You won't hurt our feelings if you don't use the St. Lawrence app, and both of them are free. So, but that's another thing to keep in mind. Testing policies. Hannah mentioned that St. Lawrence has been test optional since 2005. Last summer, a lot of schools had to figure out how to read applications without test scores. A lot of schools have had to change their testing policies because of COVID. Make sure you understand what the testing policy is at your schools. For example, at St. Lawrence, we are 100% test optional. I can say that over and over and over again, but somehow people still have it in their minds that we need to see their SAT scores for them to get a merit scholarship. We do not. It is truly test optional here. At other institutions, make sure you have that. Some are test flexible. So that means you can submit one or the other, but they'd like either the SAT or the ACT. And other schools have different variations of those. It's incumbent upon you to figure out what those schools want to do, or what they're going to require from you. And then also what is right for you. And so the way we phrase it is, if your transcript is a better reflection of you as a student than your test scores, don't send them in. It's very clear in that sense. Where it's unclear is what's the number. Try to find the mid 50%, the averages. Every college has them on their websites. If you can't find them on their website, reach out to your admissions counselor there. They will tell you. At St. Lawrence, it's about 1290, right around 1300 on the SAT, 29 on the ACT. You know, that's that about average. And so if you're below that at a certain institution, do you want to submit test scores there that are below their average? Maybe you do, but that's in rare cases, and generally that's in consultation with your guidance counselor and an admissions professional at that institution. So a little bit of homework for everyone, right? Do some test research for your schools. Required versus recommended materials and activities. Very self-explanatory. What's required of me and what is recommended? An example of that at St. Lawrence is an interview. An interview is recommended, but it is by no means required. Okay, so make sure that you've got a sense of that for each one of your schools. And then the decision plans, which can get confusing and intimidating. ED is early decision. That is a binding agreement between a student and their first choice institution that says, hey, if I get accepted at school A, I am going to enroll. You can only apply early decision at one school at a time, and that is for your first choice, okay? It's a binding agreement. There are some financial aid, you know, if the financial aid doesn't work out for you and your family and you qualify for need-based financial aid, you can be released from that binding agreement. But that is, again, for your number one, this is it. Early action is, I'm really excited about your school. I can't wait to find out my decision. My application's done. Can I give it to you and hear back sooner? And they will. They'll give you that decision, and they'll give you an estimated financial aid package along with it. Restrictive early action is a little bit different. It's where you pick your favorite early action school and apply to that one. It's less than 10, I think. It's the Ivy League schools, Georgetown, and maybe one other one. But I understand there are students tonight who are going through the recruitment process as a Division I athlete. There are students tonight who will be attending Ivy League institutions. And so if these are new terms to you and that's on your list, make sure that you familiarize yourself with it. And then finally, regular decision, which is how most of us go about the college search. And that is we'll have our letters by the end of March, and we'll sit around the kitchen table as a family, and we'll look at the costs, and we'll look at the value as it relates to the cost, and probably schedule some open house visits. But that's some lingo to hopefully give you a little bit more confidence walking into those conversations with folks like us.
And then a few last best practices before we wrap up. But again, we've said this a lot tonight, triple check spelling and grammar, ask others to proofread. When we send emails in our office that are not just your, every day, we ask each other to read them. It's just an email and we're asking each other in our office to help and to proofread. So ask for that help, ask multiple people to proofread. Consider applying for scholarships offered by each school that you feel you may qualify for. Some schools do require you to apply. We have merit-based academic scholarships that you do not have to apply for, but then we have some additional specialty scholarships that you do have to apply for. So just look at each school, what they offer, same as testing, know what their scholarships are, know if they have merit scholarships, what those look like. Do you qualify for any? Might you be a good fit? Those are really good research points to start as you kind of get more into your college search. You're going to want to look at those pieces as well. And really, what else can you think of?
Yeah, I just want to get on my soapbox here quickly and tell you about something that I did wrong when I was in your shoes and how it made me feel and how I would do it differently. And the parents in the audience tonight will appreciate this, but it really does make a difference. And that's applying for those local scholarships in your area. A $200 scholarship at an institution with a $70,000 price tag does not make a lot of sense right now. But when you go to get your textbooks at the bookstore and mom or dad pulls out their credit card to pay for those, that $200 would make a difference. Right? That's real money. That's hours worth of work that you have the opportunity to apply for this year. And those Lions Club, Elks Club scholarships, Kiwanis, they're in your area. They're out there. Apply for them. You've written these essays. You've had these conversations with folks like us. You're ready to do it. Throw your hat in the ring for those because, well, you're 100% right. It really doesn't feel like a drop in the bucket right now. In the moment when you're at college, it makes a difference. So don't make the mistake that I did. And we both attended institutions with really high price tags. We're the progeny of teachers. We're the children of educators. And so a lot of these steps were personal to us. And that's why we do this work today, so that we can help you. And maybe do it a little bit better than us, but I should say maybe me because she was the full scholarship athlete. So
that's it.
and so finally, just a little cartoon here to acknowledge that this can feel overwhelming, and just an invitation to connect with college admissions counselors at all the schools you're looking at. We're all in this job, not just at St. Lawrence, but at every institution, because we want to work with students and families, and we want to help them end up at the place that's right for them. We have a saying in our office, it's recruit to retain. We want folks who are going to love it here, and we're here to help you get through that maze. So I want to open it up in the Q&A. If anyone has any burning questions, I'm going to make sure that we can get this PowerPoint shared with you guys, as well as a recording of this evening, so that if there's a part you'd like to go back and look at again, that's of course an option. And it's pretty easy to track us down. We're front and center on the admissions page, stlawU.edu. And moving forward, I'll offer to answer any questions, for the foreseeable future. Even if they don't apply directly to St. Lawrence, you can go ahead and send those to me, Chris Felix, and I'm going to do my best to point you in the right direction, because the end goal is making sure we all end up at the right school. So I invite you to pop in any questions in the Q&A, and Hannah and I will stick around for a bit and do our best to answer those.
Thank you, everybody.
And thank you. Yes. This is a great question. Should we submit our full resume as a separate file in the application? Hannah, what would you say to that?
I would say if you feel like you can't possibly fully represent yourself in those 10 spots in the activity section, if that is really not enough, and we're talking again, substantial commitments and not just something you've done once, or if you don't feel like that can possibly be representative, you can submit a resume. We'll read it. You can submit additional recommendations. We don't want to have 8 additional recommendations because we will have to read all of them, and we will. But that's really up to you. And if it just comes down to if you feel like that section is enough, and if it's not, you can absolutely feel free to submit that as another material. I see that a lot.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I asked Hannah. The territory she works with, a lot of those students do opt to include an additional resume. My tip for that, and it's good advice for a long time. I'm on my 3rd career and I have a master's degree, and I can still fit my resume on 1 page. Hannah's in a very similar position and fits her resume on 1 page. So being able to write clearly and concisely is a skill that colleges look for. So a 3-page resume is not a good look. So tighten it up if that's what you're looking at, because it will make a difference, particularly at some very highly selective institutions. How many recommendations do you suggest we submit? So at St. Lawrence, we're a little bit different in that we want to hear from 2 of your academic teachers, and we want to hear from your high school teachers. 7th grade teachers were some of my favorite ones as well. My golf coach in high school was my 7th grade social studies teacher. That's not what the letters of recommendation are for. We want to hear about you in a classroom. And my advice for that is, so the how many is whatever the school is recommending. We require 2 teacher academic recommendations and 1 counselor recommendation. And we read every single word of those. So the number, if you want to submit an alumni recommendation, St. Lawrence has a big and active alumni network, so we see those. You absolutely can do that. If you want a letter of recommendation from your coach, that is an additional letter of recommendation unless they also taught you AP US history or something else in high school. So make sure that you're getting us that classroom content. We want to hear what you're saying in the classroom, how you're reacting to challenges. So 2 teacher recommendations, ask for those early. Your teachers do not have time in the middle of the year to quickly write you a letter of recommendation. And when they can't get it to us, and we're close to the deadline, that again is not a good spot to be in your senior year.
The next question, what if our essay doesn't really match any of the prompts?
So this is an essay that has already been written, and I want to go back to the questions to make sure it's still there. But can they still submit yeah, there's an option for something that is not one of those. And so you would just select that one. You can even submit an essay that you did for a class. I think it's fair to say that in my experience when seeing students do that, it was not successful. It's not successful to submit that social studies in lieu of your college essay. It doesn't mean it will preclude you from admission at a lot of places, but it's not a good look, even if it's a great essay. I was wondering if writing about having a disability for the college or Common App essay would be a good idea or something we should avoid. That is a fantastic question. And it's something that you should feel comfortable broaching with the college you're looking at. When folks talk to you about the right fit, you should be looking for the right academic fit, the right social fit, and the right financial fit. So let's go to that academic fit, right? If I went to Yale School of Economics tomorrow, I'm going to be in over my head. I am not academically prepared for the Yale School of Economics with my English degree and master's in education. It's just not in the cards for me. So your list, these are schools you're academically ready to do the work at. If you learn differently and have an accommodation that has helped you get there, we want to know about it, but it's not a red flag for us. We have students who have the 504 plans, IEPs. What I'm not going to do is promise you that we can give you the same accommodations. And so that is a conversation that I facilitate with students a lot. please disclose to us the challenges that you've had. You know, if your transcript has gone 80, 84, 91, 95, you're going off the charts because you overcame that challenge, right? You got the right medication balance and the right therapy balance. Talk to us about that. We want to know that growth. We want to make sure that we're going to be able to continue to foster that growth at our respective institutions. So make sure you disclose that, because every college that I know of is going to want to know so they can support you and make informed decisions as they bring you through the process.
And you don't have to broach that in the essay. There's other spots to put it if you don't want to put that, write about that in your essay. There are other sections that you can write about that. There's always going to be a place. It doesn't have to be the essay. It absolutely can be if you want.
That's a great point, Hannah. Thank you. That's the information section, and that's a great place to put it. And oftentimes, if a student doesn't disclose that, it might come up in a letter of recommendation because the counselor knows that it's an important piece. And so it's best to be consistent with everything. Be honest about your high school experience.
This next question, would applying early action provide a better chance of getting into a more selective school / getting a better scholarship or aid package?
I've only worked in college admissions at St. Lawrence University, and I can tell you that we don't have early action, we have early decision and regular decision. About a third of our class applies early decision. The other 67% applies regular decision, which is that around the kitchen table. You do not have a better chance. It's the same rubric. They're the same classes. They're the same professors. You need to be ready to do the work in the same classrooms as the students who got admitted in regular decision. There is a misconception when acceptance rates are published, right? Acceptance rates in regular decision, acceptance rates in early decision. And typically the early decision acceptance rates, whether it's at a small private high school in rural Texas or at one of the most elite institutions in the country, the acceptance rate is a little bit higher because those students are self-selected. They have said, this is my school. This is where I am that great academic fit, right? You don't want to go to a place that was, that's the problem with a reach school. You might get in. And if you go, that can be a terrifying experience. You don't want your first day of college to be terrifying. You want it to be exciting. You want to go where you're going to be challenged and grow, but so the acceptance rate in early decision, these are a lot of recruited athletes or students who have identified St. Lawrence or a particular institution as that perfect fit. They're not looking for anything else. I applied early decision after doing an early financial read, because as I said, I had to make sure that managing the cost was going to be something that I could do. We were doing that in 2004, and colleges still work with families, so make sure you're connecting with them. But you're, at least at St. Lawrence, you're going with the same rubric. Yeah.
And sorry, Joy, thank you for clarifying.
Yes, so sorry, should have been more specific.
On our end. And, yeah.
Yes, the question about a disability was about a physical disability, and you should still disclose that. Again, I can only speak for St. Lawrence. St. Lawrence has been around for a while. We were founded in 1856, and we are ADA compliant, but we are not completely accessible. So when we have a student so some of our buildings are on the National Historic Registry, they're the New York Historic Registry, we can't put an elevator in them. It's architecturally impossible, and they're still used for classes. So if you are a student who has a physical disability, you can't get to the third floor of Richardson for your class, Richardson Hall, that class will not take place on the third floor of Richardson Hall. We will make sure that class takes place in a classroom environment that's accessible for everyone in the class. So that is the St. Lawrence way. And the only way I can share that information with a prospective student and be honest and say, we are not fully accessible. We're compliant and we work with you. That's the answer. And the only way to get that information is to be forthcoming in your application. If it's in that additional information section, hey, I want you to know that I have a physical disability and I've got some questions about that. A good college admissions counselor is going to reach out to you. That's one for us. There's a Post-it note. I'm emailing this student tonight or tomorrow to say, how do we help you? What do we do to help you? And so again, that's what admissions counselors at all schools are there to do. Yeah.
All right.
Should you address difficulties you may have had academically in a class or content area if it doesn't align with other grades? Would this be a good or bad idea? If it is good to address, where could I do this? It is good to address. Admissions counselors hate finishing an application and then saying, I wonder what happened. We should not have to ask ourselves those questions. We do our best to give students the benefit of the doubt when we're in those positions, but something on your transcript is an immutable fact, right? Until Mr. Howe gets that time machine hammered down, that's there, we will see it, and it will stand out to us. So some great places to address that are in an interview, an email to your admissions counselor, or in that additional information section. You can also talk to your guidance counselor and say, hey, Ms. Milan, I'm really concerned. You saw that chemistry and physics did not go well for me. True story. How do I let them know that I did my best? I worked really hard. The answer for me there was to get a letter of recommendation from my chemistry teacher. Even though I didn't get that A that I'm used to getting, it was quite far from that. In fact, he was able to say what happens when I'm faced with a challenge, right? Content that I'm not great with. So think of some ways. Those are just some ways you can do that. We're not all great at every subject, and so addressing that and talking to us about that is the way to do that.
So this next question is going back to the question about disabilities. Is it a good idea for a topic? And it's hard to answer.
Yeah, so in your college essay, that can be a really challenging one to answer. And the reason is like a lot of us, folks struggle with anxiety and depression. We're coming out of a really weird time as a country. And that's not me saying, oh my God, don't do it, because we all have it. It's a difficult balancing act because you don't know who's going to read it. And maybe it's me, and I can read that and I can know that, hey, this is just Hannah telling me about the struggles she's had. Hannah and I have been doing this for a while. You might have a brand new admissions counselor or a new admissions staff who's struggling or going through their own challenges, or they have their own thoughts and perspectives on this. And it's a challenge to do that really well. Is it possible? Yes. This is one of those scenarios where I, again, invite you should be writing 2 to 3 different essays for your college essay. Write that one, see how it feels, see what folks say about it, see how the other ones stack up against it, and get some feedback from other folks in your life about that. And I want to hear from Hannah.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And I think the reason that it's hard for us to answer that is, the answer is, yeah, that's a great topic, but it comes down to the writing and the substance, and that we just can't predict. So it's hard for us to tell you not to do that. Again, we're not telling you not to do a big game essay. We're just saying that's hard to really pull off well. And so it's really hard to say whether it's a good topic or not, but that's kind of how we see it.
And it's okay to broach that, to say, hey, I'm Chris, I've got anxiety and it drives me bananas. And I'm going to give you an anecdote about that anxiety, but I'm going to talk to you about how I overcome it, how I live with it, how I manage it, how I'm excited for that next step. I know college is going to be a challenge. I'm moving away from home, but these are the skills that I have. These are the tools that I'm bringing. And, so there's a way to do it, but just make sure that it's not, getting stuck in a loop of this is a challenge and I'm not emerging from it.
Well,
all right, so we're coming up on the hour mark, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Again, this is recorded, and while Hannah is going to duck out to New Hampshire and Maine and those states in the Midwest that I can't even remember, I am your admissions counselor if you are interested in St. Lawrence. I'd love to hear from you. You can shoot me an email, and we can get connected. But as you move forward, this is available. And like I said, I'm happy to answer questions that just pertain to this as we move forward for a couple of days. Thank you so much. And thank you, Hannah, for joining us. It's always great to have a second voice here, so the 585 doesn't just have to hear from Chris Felix.
Yeah, the admissions dream team.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
all.
everybody.
Have a good night.